Hello, my name is Xiaochun Wang. I'm a master's student studying photography preservation and collections management at the University of Rochester and the Eastman Museum in Rochester, New York. Today I'll be talking about some photographs in the current permanent collection installation of our History of Photography gallery. This group of photographs was organized to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And it demonstrates how photographs have shaped perceptions of women and the feminist movements since the media's invention in the mid-1800s. First, we are going to look at a group of photographs which picture the ordinary lives of women in the 19th century. This tintype presents some women working in a textile mill. The Industrial Revolution had a significant effect on the lives of women. In the late 19th century, more and more women went to work away from their homes. Women made up a large percentage of new factory labor force, especially in the textile industry. The factory wages gave women some financial independence. However, work was tiresome and dangerous, and female workers were usually paid less than male workers. In response to these conditions, women workers established their own organizations to protest against unfair treatment. Their protests played a significant role in fighting for women's rights to equal pay for equal work. While many women went to work in factories, there are still a lot of women engaged in domestic service. The next object is a snapshot, which captures a domestic servant hanging up clothes. The picture's porthole shape indicates the photograph was made with the Kodak #1 camera. The print on the verso says, "This photo was made with the Kodak camera, manufactured only by Eastman Dry Plate and the Film Company, Rochester, New York." George Eastman introduced Kodak cameras in 1888. Different from cameras that use a glass plate negative for each exposure, the Kodak camera was preloaded with a 100 exposure roll of flexible film that gave circular images. Amateurs, including children, could easily use these portable box cameras to capture everyday moments and memories. This snapshot was made by the 13-year-old Raymond Albright, who was from a prominent family of Buffalo in the late 19th century. When he experimented with the camera, Raymond probably prepared to snap any subjects that he was familiar with, such as domestic servants in his family. Raymond made hundreds of snapshots from 1888 to 1895, and now they are the collection at the Eastman Museum. Let's move to the next photograph, which depicts a woman breastfeeding a baby. It's a tintype mounted in a small case about 3 inches by 4. If we look at this picture carefully, we'll find traces of hand coloring remaining on the faces of the portraits. The history of breastfeeding is complicated. In the Victorian era, a lot of women preferred breastfed milk to infant formula because they believed the former is safer for infants. In the 19th century, hiring wet nurses remained a common practice among upper-class women, who considered themselves too genteel to breastfeed. Meanwhile, many American women believed breastfeeding their own children was a central measure of their worth as mothers. Such photographs of women breastfeeding became a fad in the US in the mid-19th century. Although the identity of the sitter is unknown, this photograph demonstrates the importance of breastfeeding for babies at the time. Okay, Let's look at another group of photographs presenting women's suffrage movement in the early 20th century. These three photographs depict the suffrage hike in 1913, and it was organized by Rosalie Jones, known as General Jones. The hike covered 240 miles in 17 days. The suffragists and the participants began the hike in New York City and then passed through New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, and joined the women's suffrage procession in Washington, D.C. on March 3rd. These photographs were made by Spooner Wells Inc., a company well known for photographing early automobiles around the U.S. In these pictures, we can see cars appeared in the suffrage trip. There's even a woman driving a car in the picture. Her name is Olive Shoes. According to New York Times report, she is one of the first female taxi drivers in New York. In the early 20th century, women began to use cars for suffrage parades frequently. Automobiles became an emblem of women's modernity, independence, and mobility at the time. Now let's look at a photo postcard. In the 1910s, postcards played an essential role in raising public awareness of the women's suffrage movement. Votes for Women, as seen in this picture, was one of the most popular and recognizable slogans used by suffragists. The maker Fred Thold was a Philadelphia photographer who made many portrait postcards in a humorous style. The woman in the picture is Katharine Jameson. She was a crucial committee member of the Women's Federation of the Photographers Association of America. The federation was founded in Rochester, New York in 1909. Its purpose was to encourage the interchange of artistic, technical, and business ideas among women photographers and improve themselves in the art of photography. The last photograph I want to talk about was made by Imogen Cunningham, who is renowned as one of the greatest American women photographers. This photograph captures American sculptor Ruth Asawa working in her home. Ruth's parents were Japanese immigrants. During World War II, Ruth and her family were made to live in an internment camp, where she began to be interested in art. In 1946, Ruth went to the Black Mountain College, located in North Carolina. In 1947, Ruth had a trip to Mexico. The local craftsmen taught her skills of using wire to create baskets. These techniques inspired her to experiment with sculptures. In the 1950s, Ruth began to receive recognition for her looped wire sculpture. Beginning in 1952, Ruth established a close friendship with Imogen. Imogen took a lot of photographs to document Ruth's early work and family life. This picture is one of Ruth's favorite photographs. The portrait of artist working at home, surrounded by her 4 children, emphasizes Ruth Asawa's dual role as artist and mother. Thank you for joining this virtual gallery talk, and I hope you enjoy the exhibit. Thank you.